Five-star quarterback Jayden Wade is the number one player in 2028, according to 24/7. Five-star quarterback Jayden Wade also just committed to the Georgia Bulldogs. So we're going to talk a little bit about his sophomore film here. And we're not going to get too into the weeds. This is a 2028 football player. This is a guy that we only have sophomore film of. And this is also a guy that only had one start as a freshman in high school. So, not a whole lot that we're going to work with. The point of the matter is that this guy doesn't sign the dotted line for another 2 years. Anyway, there's a lot that can change, not only in his recruitment, but, how good of a football player he is. We remember Jared Curtis committed to Georgia after his sophomore season, kind of a similar spot as Jayden Wade's in his recruitment right now. Jared Curtis ends up decommitting from Georgia and then recommitting to Georgia, and all signs point towards Jared Curtis ultimately signing with Georgia. But I just want to make the point that this guy's a 2028. There's a lot of things that can change. Don't start factoring him into the depth chart yet. But just talking about the football player Jayden Wade, why 24/7 has him rated as the number one player, regardless of position in 2028. To me, it's the release. Everything just comes out of his hands so quick. I want to watch this deep throw one more time. This is a really nice throw downfield, the way that this ball gets there right as this receiver passes this cornerback here, and then just the release, how fast the ball gets out of his hands in general. We're not only going to see that on this downfield pass, but really these screen passes, just the majority of what Jayden Wade does. Everything just happens so fast. And according to 24/7, he's also got the top flight athletic numbers. We don't really see this on this sophomore highlight tape. So, again, we're not going to see this guy between the hedges for another 2-3 years. This guy is still so young. So there's a lot that can change in the evaluation. But just talking about him right now, I just think the release is really what gets me excited about him as a quarterback prospect. And then also the fact that he goes to IMG. Jared Curtis, such a good football player at Nashville Christian. I do think that there's going to be a bit more of a acclimation period of him getting used to the speed of play at the next level, just because of the level of competition he's been facing. That's not to say that he won't be starting by year 2. I definitely think Jared Curtis has the talent to do that. But a guy like Jayden Wade, this is kind of a who's who of who's the best football players across the country. Just the schedule that IMG plays every year. I think after getting 3 full years as a starter at IMG, playing a schedule like that, I do think that those the reads are going to happen a lot faster than most prospects across the country. He's going to iron out a lot of the finer points of the game in high school just because of the schedule that they're playing. And then, of course, the resources that IMG has, compared to other schools across America. They got the really good film angles. It's almost like a glorified college program that IMG is. So that's something that does get me excited. We don't talk about that with the other positions quite as much, but I do think it means a lot more for a quarterback especially. Just going to watch this throw one more time. I love the flashes of some of these downfield throws, just the touch that this ball has right here. This gets right there, right before the safety would have got there and right after the cornerback. So I do think there's some flashes of that high-end arm talent. At the end of the day, if you want me to come on here, and my last words is going to be 2028, and we're in 2025 right now. This is such a ways off till he's actually playing. But I do think that, if I'm a Georgia fan, I just know fans in general, you want to talk about the top guy that they just landed the commitment of. But that's what I'm excited about. To me, it's all about the release. But I'm curious to hear other people's opinions. Again, there's not a lot that we're going to work with. I think by the time he actually is going to be walking into Georgia or wherever he ultimately ends up signing, we're going to have a lot more to deal with, a lot more to talk about. So, the fact that he's going to have 3 full years of starting at IMG, I think that just kind of raises his floor just a little bit, at least in my head. But as always, you guys let me know what you think about Jayden Wade. Is there anything else you'd like to see on the film show up over the next 2 years, or whatever you guys want to talk about? Feel free to reach out. Thanks for watching.